What happens when a Hollywood actor known for intensity walks into a studio built for comfort, applause, and sharp opinions, and finds himself staring down a question that won't let him escape? The lights are already hot before the cameras roll. If you love cinematic celebrity moments like this, subscribe to Stage View right now, and hit like and comment to let us know you're watching, because stories like this only get more intense from here. The studio of The View hums with that familiar pre-show energy. Producers whisper into headsets. Audience members shift in their seats, clutching coffee cups and phones, unaware that in a matter of minutes, the polite rhythm of daytime television is about to fracture. The theme music fades, applause swells, and the cameras glide forward like predators sensing motion. Then he walks out. Jake Gyllenhaal smiles. The practice smile. The one that has carried him through red carpets, late-night couches, and 1,000 interviews that never quite reached the surface of who he really is. He waves, nods, shakes hands. The audience applauds louder than expected. There's admiration here, and curiosity too. He takes his seat, jacket crisp, posture relaxed, but there's something in his eyes. A tightness, like a man bracing for impact without knowing from which direction it will come. Across the table sits Joy Behar, leaning back slightly, glasses perched low, lips curled into a half-smile that has unsettled politicians, actors, and cultural icons alike. She flips a card between her fingers, listening as another host finishes an opening question. Joy isn't speaking yet. That's the first warning sign. Jake laughs at something, an easy line about his latest project, a self-deprecating joke. The audience laughs with him. Applause again. On the surface, everything is fine. Perfect, even. But the camera cuts to Joy and she tilts her head, just a fraction. The smile sharpens. Joy clears her throat. "So, Jake," she says, voice light, conversational, "you've played a lot of complicated men. Angry men. Men who think they're doing the right thing." Jake nods. "Yeah, I guess I'm drawn to characters with conflict." Joy hums. Conflict is one word for it. A ripple of laughter moves through the audience. Jake chuckles too, but his shoulders stiffen. He knows this tone. He's heard it before, right before an interview turns. Joy leans forward. "Do you ever worry that these roles, these intense, sometimes violent men, normalize certain behaviors? Especially in a culture already struggling with anger." The studio quiets. Not completely. Just enough. Jake inhales. "I think stories are meant to explore human flaws, not endorse them. Film is a mirror." Joy raises an eyebrow. "But mirrors reflect, Jake. And people imitate what they see." A soft oh ripples from the crowd. Someone claps once, then stops. Jake shifts in his chair. "I don't think audiences are that passive. People are smart. They understand context." Joy smiles again, but this time it doesn't reach her eyes. "You're giving a lot of credit to an industry that sells fantasy as reality for billions of dollars." The camera cuts between them now, tight shots. No room to breathe. Jake's jaw tightens. "I think it's dangerous to blame actors for societal problems." Joy doesn't miss a beat. "I think it's dangerous to pretend influence doesn't exist." The tension is no longer subtle. Even the hosts beside Joy glance at one another, sensing the shift. This isn't playful debate. This is pressure. Jake folds his hands together, knuckles whitening. "With respect, Joy, that feels unfair. I choose roles that challenge me artistically, not politically." "But art is political," Joy says, voice firmer now. "Especially when it reaches millions." Applause breaks out, uneven, divided. Some clap loudly. Others stay silent, arms crossed. Jake's smile is gone now. "So what are you saying? That I should avoid complex characters because they make people uncomfortable?" Joy tilts her head again. "I'm asking if you feel any responsibility for the messages those characters send." Silence. It stretches just long enough to feel heavy. Jake exhales slowly. "I feel responsible for telling the truth of a character. Nothing more, nothing less." Joy nods slowly, as if considering his answer. Then she strikes. "And what if that truth reinforces harmful ideas?" The audience reacts audibly now, gasps, murmurs, a sharp intake of breath from the front row. Jake blinks once. Twice. This is no longer about film theory. This feels personal. "Joy," he says carefully, "I think that question assumes bad faith." Her eyes narrow. "Does it? Or does it assume awareness?" Jake leans forward for the first time. "I'm an actor, not a moral authority." Joy leans forward too, matching his movement. "And yet people listen to you like one." The air feels thinner. Even through the screen, it's palpable. A producer off camera shifts nervously. One of the co-hosts opens her mouth, then closes it, deciding not to intervene. Jake runs a hand over his knee. I think we're oversimplifying a very complex issue. Joy's smile disappears entirely. Complexity shouldn't be a shield. That's when the audience splits. Applause erupts from one side. The other side remains still. You can almost draw a line down the studio floor. Jake nods slowly, eyes flashing. An accusation shouldn't be a weapon. A collective gasp. Someone whispers, "Wow." Joy sits back, arms crossing. Is that what you think this is? Jake meets her gaze. It feels like it. For a moment, neither speaks. The camera lingers. This isn't daytime television anymore. This is a standoff. The host to Joy's left finally tries to step in. Okay, let's. Joy lifts a hand, cutting her off. No, I'm genuinely curious. Jake's voice is quieter now, but steadier. Then ask with curiosity, not condemnation. The audience erupts, loud applause, cheers, a few boos mixed in. The show has slipped out of its usual rhythm, and everyone knows it. This is the moment clips are born from. This is the moment Twitter will freeze frame. Joy exhales, lips pressed thin. Fair enough, she says, though her tone suggests anything but surrender. Jake nods once, curtly. The cameras pull back slightly, but the tension doesn't fade. It settles. Heavy. Waiting. And as the segment moves forward, one thing is already clear. This wasn't just an interview. It was a collision of perspectives, of power, of expectations under unforgiving studio lights. And the pressure? It's only just beginning. The moment the applause fades, the studio feels smaller. Not physically, no walls have moved, but emotionally, like the air has been compressed between two opposing forces that refuse to give way. The view slips back into motion, cameras adjusting, red lights blinking with quiet insistence, but the rhythm is off. Everyone can feel it. The audience shifts again, some leaning forward, others crossing their arms, bracing for what comes next. Jake exhales, slow and controlled, like he's reminding himself where he is. A daytime set. Bright colors. Smiling faces printed on cue cards. Not a courtroom. Not a battlefield. But his body doesn't seem convinced. Across from him, Joy Behar uncrosses her arms and reaches for her mug, taking a deliberate sip. It's a pause meant to look casual. It isn't. So, she says lightly, setting the mug down, let's talk about your new film. The audience laughs, relieved, nervous laughter. The signal everyone recognizes. Reset, move on, save the segment. Jake nods, grateful for the shift, or at least pretending to be. Sure. But Joy doesn't jump into promotion. She lets the silence stretch just a second too long, then adds, It's another intense role, isn't it? There it is again. Jake smiles thinly. It's dramatic, yes. And your character, Joy continues, flipping through her notes. He's isolated, angry, misunderstood. Feels like familiar territory. Jake's fingers tighten around the edge of his chair. I don't choose roles based on patterns. I choose them based on story. Joy looks up sharply. But patterns exist whether we acknowledge them or not. The audience murmurs. A woman in the second row nods emphatically. Someone behind her shakes their head. Jake leans back, trying to reclaim space. Are we talking about the film or about me? Joy meets his eyes. Sometimes those lines blur. The co-hosts exchange looks again. One of them smiles too brightly, nodding as if in agreement with both sides, hoping to dissolve the tension through sheer optimism. It doesn't work. Jake laughs softly, but there's no humor in it. That's a slippery slope. Joy shrugs. So his pretending influence doesn't matter. A beat. Jake's voice drops slightly. You keep saying that. Joy tilts her head. Because you keep dismissing it. The audience reacts instantly, this time louder. Applause breaks out, stronger than before, followed by scattered boos. The divide in the room has sharpened, and the cameras catch every flicker of it. Producers are already imagining the clip titles. Jake inhales, then speaks carefully. Joy, I don't dismiss influence. I just don't believe it's singular or simple. Joy's eyes narrow. That sounds like a way to avoid responsibility. That word lands hard. Jake stiffens. Responsibility for what, exactly? For shaping narratives, Joy says. For reinforcing ideas about masculinity, violence, emotional repression. A murmur rolls through the crowd. Someone whispers Jake's name like a warning. Jake shakes his head. You're putting a lot on the shoulders of one actor. Joy leans forward again, elbows on the table. Not just you, but you're here. The camera cuts tight on Jake's face now. His jaw clenches. The polished interview persona is cracking, just slightly, enough for something raw to show through. I grew up watching films that scared me, inspired me, confused me, he says. They didn't tell me how to live. They made me think. Joy responds immediately. And a lot of people don't think, they absorb. Jake's eyes flash. That's an incredibly low opinion of audiences. A wave of applause erupts, louder, more unified this time. Jake nods once in acknowledgement, but his gaze never leaves Joy. She smiles, but it's sharp. It's not low. It's realistic. Another host finally jumps in. I think what Joy is saying is. Joy lifts her hand again. I can speak for myself. The interruption only heightens the tension. Jake glances briefly at the other hosts, then back at Joy, realizing this is now a one-on-one whether anyone planned it or not. Let me ask you something, Jake says, voice steady but edged. Do you think actors should avoid difficult roles? Joy considers him. I think actors should interrogate why they're drawn to them. Jake nods slowly. I do. Joy raises an eyebrow. And what have you learned? The question hangs there, heavy, personal. The audience falls quiet again, sensing this is no longer theoretical. Jake pauses, longer than before. When he speaks, his voice is softer. I've learned that darkness exists whether we portray it or not. Joy's tone softens too, but only slightly. And bringing it into the light doesn't automatically make it harmless. Jake leans forward, mirroring her posture again. No, but ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Applause swells, this time mixed chaotic, emotions spilling out in sound. Someone in the back shouts, "Tell her." Another voice answers, "She's right." Joy's lips press together. She nods once, slowly. You're very articulate, Jake. I'll give you that. The phrase lands like a compliment wrapped around a challenge. But, she continues, articulation isn't accountability. Jake exhales through his nose. And accountability isn't censorship. The room erupts. Full applause now, loud enough to briefly drown out the microphones. The camera pulls back, catching audience members clapping, others shaking their heads, some filming on their phones despite the rules. Joy waits it out. When the noise dies down, she speaks calmly. No one said censorship. Jake responds immediately. It's always the next step. A hush falls. Joy's expression hardens. That's a deflection. Jake shakes his head. It's a warning. Another co-host finally manages to wedge herself in. Okay, this is clearly a passionate topic. Joy turns slightly toward her, then back to Jake. One last thing. Jake's eyes flicker. He nods. Go ahead. Joy's voice is quieter now, almost conversational. Do you think your fame insulates you from the consequences of the stories you tell? The question hits differently. It's not accusatory. It's surgical. Jake blinks. The room holds its breath. No, he says slowly. I think my fame amplifies scrutiny. Like this. A ripple of laughter breaks the tension, but it's fragile. Joy smiles faintly. Touché. For the first time since the segment began, the edge dulls, just a little. The co-host seizes the opening, launching into a transition about the film's release date, the cast, the awards buzz. Jake answers smoothly, professionally, like a man stepping back into armor. But something has shifted. You can see it in the way he nods, the way Joy watches him now, quieter, more contemplative. The audience remains alert, buzzing, whispering. As the cameras cut to commercial, applause fills the studio again. But this time it's different. Not celebratory. Not polite. Charged. Because whatever just happened didn't end when the music swelled. It followed Jake as he stood up, shook hands, forced another smile. It lingered in Joy's crossed arms, her thoughtful silence. And everyone watching knows it. This wasn't resolved. It was only deepening. The commercial break should have been a relief. It isn't. The red on-air lights click off, applause dissolves into chatter, and the studio fills with that strange in-between noise. Half professionalism, half unease. A floor manager gestures for Jake to stay seated. Someone adjusts his mic. Another voice whispers, 2 minutes. The rhythm of the view keeps moving, but the energy has shifted into something brittle, like glass under pressure. Jake stares at the table for a second too long. He can feel it now, the delayed adrenaline, the heat creeping up his neck, the echo of Joy's last question still bouncing around his skull. Fame doesn't insulate you. It amplifies scrutiny. He'd meant it as a deflection, maybe even a joke. Sitting here, it feels more like a confession. Across from him, Joy Behar is quiet. Too quiet. She sips her coffee again, eyes unfocused, not on Jake, not on the producers, somewhere else entirely. This isn't victory. It doesn't look like satisfaction either. It looks like calculation. One of the co-hosts leans toward Jake and murmurs, "You okay?" Her smile is kind but tight. Jake nods. Yeah, he doesn't believe it. A producer crouches near Joy, whispering urgently. Joy nods once, then waves her off with a small flick of her fingers. The message is clear. I've got this. Jake glances toward the audience. They haven't relaxed. Some are still clapping quietly, like they don't want the moment to end. Others whisper furiously, phones hidden low, thumbs moving fast. Even before the break is over, the conversation has already escaped the room. Backstage monitors glow. Clips are being replayed in real time. Captions are being written. What happens when Jake Gyllenhaal clashes with Joy Behar? Actor pushed on responsibility. Fiery exchange on live TV. Jake doesn't see the headlines yet, but he feels them coming. The countdown begins. 5, 4, 3. The lights blaze back on. Instant smiles. Instant posture. Joy straightens, composed, professional. Jake lifts his chin, resets his expression. The cameras roll, and the illusion snaps back into place like a mask. And we're back. Another host chirps brightly, voice pitched just high enough to cut through the tension. Jake, your performance has already generated so much conversation. Conversation. That word lands heavy. Jake nods politely. I'm grateful people are engaging with the work. Joy turns to him. Engagement is good, she says measured. It means people care. There's a pause. It's subtle, but it's there. Jake looks at her. Really looks this time. I agree. The audience senses it immediately. Something has changed again. This isn't escalation. It's something else. A standoff cooling into something more dangerous, mutual awareness. But, Joy adds, tilting her head, engagement also means accountability doesn't end when the credits roll. Jake doesn't react right away. When he does, his voice is calm. Accountability should be shared. Artists, critics, audiences. Joy studies him. That's fair. The word fair lands softly, almost surprisingly. A few audience members clap cautiously. One of the co-hosts exhales in relief and jumps in, steering the conversation toward lighter ground. Training for the role, the physical demands, the preparation. Jake answers smoothly, slipping back into familiar territory, but there's a new edge beneath the polish. Every answer feels weighed now, measured against the last 10 minutes. Joy listens without interrupting. That alone is unsettling. When Jake finishes a story about filming a difficult scene, Joy nods. That level of commitment is admirable, she says. I just hope the industry commits as deeply to reflection. Jake smiles faintly. I think conversations like this are part of that. The audience reacts, applause, genuine this time, though still divided. The cameras pan across faces. Some impressed, some skeptical, some thrilled by the friction they just witnessed. As the segment winds down, the host thanks Jake, mentions the release date again, and cues the audience to applaud. They do, loudly, enthusiastically, as if volume alone can resolve what words couldn't. Jake stands, shakes hands. When he reaches Joy, there's a brief hesitation, half a second where neither moves. Then Joy extends her hand. Thank you for engaging, she says quietly. Jake takes it. Thank you for asking. Their handshake is firm, professional, loaded. The cameras cut away, but the moment doesn't end. Not really. Backstage, Jake exhales hard as soon as he's out of frame. A publicist appears instantly, murmuring reassurances, already talking strategy. You were great. Calm. Articulate. It's trending, but in a good way. Trending. Jake rubs his temples. Somewhere, his phone is vibrating nonstop. On the other side of the set, Joy removes her mic and hands it off. A producer approaches her. That got intense. Joy nods. It needed to. But Twitter. Joy smiles thinly. Twitter is always angry. In the hallway, Jake catches a glimpse of a monitor replaying the exchange. His own face stares back at him, controlled but clearly strained. He barely recognizes it. By the time he reaches his dressing room, the world has already reacted. Clips are everywhere. Side-by-sides. Slow-motion eye contact. Captions arguing opposite points with equal conviction. Some hail Jake as thoughtful, measured, unfairly cornered. Others accuse him of dodging responsibility, hiding behind intellectual language. Joy is praised as fearless, relentless, or criticized as combative, unfair, out of line. There is no consensus. Only noise. Jake sinks into a chair, phone in hand now, scrolling despite himself. Comment after comment. Praise. Rage. Analysis. Memes already forming. He locks the screen and sets the phone down face first. In the studio, Joy glances at her own phone too. She reads one comment, then another. Her expression hardens, then softens. She sets the phone aside and stares ahead, thoughtful. The show moves on. Another guest. Another topic. But the moment lingers, fractured, unresolved, alive. And as night falls and the clips continue to spread, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This wasn't just television. It was a spark. And sparks don't fade quietly. By the time the sun sets, the moment has already outgrown the studio. Clips from the view dominate timelines, chopped into sharp angles and frozen expressions. Jake leaning forward, Joy's eyebrow raised. That half second of silence that feels louder than any applause. Each clip tells a different story, depending on who's sharing it, and why. On one screen, Jake Gyllenhaal is framed as composed under fire, a thoughtful artist pushed into a corner and refusing to collapse. Captions praise his restraint, his intelligence, the way he never raised his voice even when the questions sharpened. Class act, one post reads, racking up thousands of likes in minutes. On another, Joy Behar is hailed as fearless, the veteran host who refused to let celebrity charm deflect a hard conversation. She asked what everyone's afraid to ask. A tweet declares, retweeted again and again, applause emojis stacking like confetti. And then there are the others, the critics, the skeptics, the ones who say Jake hid behind eloquence, the ones who say Joy crossed a line, turned an interview into an ambush. Comment sections split clean down the middle, strangers arguing with strangers as if they were sitting at the table themselves. In a quiet car rolling through Manhattan traffic, Jake watches the city blur past his window. His phone lights up again. A message from a fellow actor. Saw it. That was rough. Another from a director. You handled it well. Another from someone he hasn't spoken to in years. That question needed asking. He closes his eyes for a moment. Inside his head, the studio replays on a loop. The lights, the silence, Joy's voice asking about responsibility. He wonders how many people saw strength in his answers, and how many saw avoidance. He wonders if there's a difference. At home, he finally opens his phone again. Not to read comments this time, but to post something himself. A short statement, carefully worded, grateful for conversation. Art should challenge. Dialogue matters. He stares at it for a long moment before hitting post. Within seconds, it's everywhere. Across town, Joy sits at her kitchen table, glasses off now, television muted in the background. She scrolls too, slower than Jake did, more selectively. She pauses on a clip where the audience gasped, on another where applause thundered. She reads a message from a young viewer thanking her for saying what I feel but couldn't articulate. Joy exhales. She doesn't post anything. Not tonight. She knows silence can speak just as loudly. The next morning, headlines are sharper, bolder. Jake Gyllenhaal and Joy Behar's tense exchange ignites debate. Art, accountability, and a moment that divided daytime TV. Media analysts dissect body language. Psychologists weigh in on masculinity and representation. Entertainment shows replay the clip with dramatic music underneath, stretching 10 minutes into 30. Everyone has an opinion now, even people who never watched the full segment. In the studio, producers meet around a table cluttered with coffee cups and printouts of engagement numbers. Ratings spiked. Social reach exploded. Someone calls it lightning in a bottle. Someone else calls it a risk. Both are right. Audience members who were there that day recognize themselves online, pointing at the screen. That's me clapping. That's when it got quiet. They remember how it felt in the room. That tension, that electricity, the sense that something unscripted had slipped through the cracks of television polish. For days, the debate doesn't fade. It evolves. College classes reference the exchange. Podcasts argue both sides. Clips are slowed down, rewatched, reinterpreted. The moment becomes less about Jake or Joy and more about what people project onto them. Art versus influence, fame versus responsibility, questions versus accusations. And somewhere in all of that noise, something rare happens. People talk. Not politely, not neatly, but honestly. The moment never resolves cleanly. There's no winner declared, no apology issued, no neat conclusion wrapped in a bow. Instead, it lingers, messy, unresolved, alive in the culture. Maybe that's why it mattered. Because under those bright studio lights, for a few charged minutes, comfort gave way to confrontation. And confrontation gave way to conversation. Now it's your turn. What did you see in that moment? Was Jake unfairly pressured or appropriately challenged? Did Joy cross a line or draw one that needed to be seen? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear them. And if you want more explosive, cinematic deep dives into the moments that shake pop culture, subscribe to Stage View right now, because the next story might be even more intense.